The GBNews Tavern is now open. It is time for Talking Pints. I'm joined by Jason Cundy. Jason, welcome.
Nigel, Happy New Year to you as well. Thank you for inviting me.
Not one bit. Now, Jason, the young Jason, football fan, football fanatic.
Yeah.
And it was blue is the colour, football is the game,
Yes.
we're all together and Chelsea is... I mean, it was Chelsea all the way for you,
It was. My dad took me there for my 7th birthday back in... early 1976, 1977, to Stamford Bridge, and that just lit my love for Chelsea. And I'm lucky enough to still be working there, Nigel. So yes, so Chelsea was always my club, and it comes down to my dad, and it's one of the father to son relationships that never ever dies if you follow your football club forever.
Yeah, we had Ken Bates on the programme the other week.
I know Batesy very well.
Dear old Ken.
I know Batesy very well.
Who did Chelsea a lot of good.
Yeah.
But for you, so you're a young lad, you're 7, you've got the magic of Stamford Bridge,
Yep.
you become a junior player at the club, and it's kind of, there must be huge numbers of young lads, and now girls, out
Of course.
there, you know, and they've got the team they support, and their biggest dream in life, really, is to play for that team.
Indeed.
And you actually managed to do it.
Yeah, there aren't many. Look, every footballer that grows up supports a club. I was lucky enough to play for the club that I supported and loved and still work for now. I've had a love affair with Chelsea since I could walk, and I'm still lucky enough to work for Chelsea TV now. So yes, it's one of those things that you don't think about as a young boy. You just, you follow your dream, you follow your club, and I feel privileged to still be involved with the club that I loved, and I was so lucky to play and still work for Chelsea.
I guess going out onto the pitch for your first full game, that must have been a bit special.
It was. I remember at Sunderland at home, I was at fault for the first goal. I remember that. We won. My debut was away, played against QPR, but all those years that I watched Chelsea from the terraces in the shed as a young boy, and then getting a schoolboy and then an apprenticeship, and then a pro to go and play for the club I love.
So lots of years of hard work to get there.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you don't get to that level without sacrificing and hard work and doing what. It was easy to a point because it was something I loved. But there are points in your career where you do have to sacrifice, going out and having to be disciplined and looking after yourself. And yeah, I mean, I go with the word privilege. I feel lucky, but at the same time, every boy wants that, and I was the less than 1% that got there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you went on in later years. You played a lot of games for Ipswich, and in the end, your career is ended by injury, which of course is the bane of all sportsmen.
Yeah.
Isn't that the big fear in professional sport?
It is, and you know what, Nigel? I went to Spurs. I hardly played at Spurs through injuries. I was there 4 or 5 years. I had a back injury. I broke my ankle. Had an operation on my ankle, my knee, and eventually I had to leave Spurs to go further my career. I went to Ipswich, and George Burley really did save my career in some ways. And I spent 2.5 happy years at Ipswich. So yes, injuries is the one thing that every professional sportsman, not just footballer, fears. And unfortunately for me, I had my unfair share. And even after and football, even during football, I suffered illness as well. So it does feel a little bit like what lucky stick did I hit on the way down? But
well, yeah, it's a funny one that, Jason, isn't it? Whether you have good luck or bad luck in life, because bad things can happen to us in life. But you and I are both sitting here having a chat and a drink, and we have one thing in common.
Correct. That
you, at the time you were at Ipswich, discovered a medical problem.
Correct.
And I want you to share that with us.
So I was sitting at home watching EastEnders, of all things. And
it takes all sorts.
It does. And I just happened to put my hands down my shorts, and I thought,
like you do.
Every man listening to this knows what I'm talking about. It happened, and I'm like, what is that? And one ball was heavier and larger than the other, and I thought, this doesn't feel right. I showed the physio the next day, and I saw the doctor on the Saturday, and he said to me, "You can't play." I'm like, what do you mean I can't play? I'm playing. I'm in the team. This is, an hour and a half before kickoff. I'm playing. He said, we've got to get you in for a scan. And I'm, right, forget that. I'm playing, right? So when I played and they tried to get me in for a scan after the game, the earliest they could get me in was on the Monday after the Saturday.
Yeah.
We won 1-0, by the way, on that day.
And that's what really matters.
That's about it. And the nurses were waiting outside for me in the hospital, and I knew something wasn't right. I went in and I had an ultrasound scan, and within 10, 15 seconds, they scanned my ball and they said, yeah, this has got to come out. And I'm like,
I know.
What? I felt my palms went sweaty. I could feel how many people's palms sweat. And I'm like, what do you mean? They said, there's a tumour. And there's only one word you think of when you hear the word tumour, and it's cancer. And I said, is it cancer? And they said, we don't know yet. It's got to come out. And the following day, I went back up to Ipswich and had the operation.
I went through the same thing.
I know.
I was a bit younger then. I was 21. You were 26 or 7, I think, at the time. Yeah, it is a heck of a shock. And yet, you know, you're sitting here talking about it, and I rarely do talk about it, to be honest with you.
Why?
I don't know. I suppose most men,
It's happened
most
to you,
men feel awkward about these things. And isn't that really the point here, that this is one of those cancers that actually can be detected early because it is outside as opposed to an internal organ.
Yep.
So it can be detected early. And yet there are quite a lot of young men who think something's wrong, it'll get better, it'll be all right. And they're the ones that finish up in trouble, aren't they?
They are the ones. And I felt duty-bound, actually, Nigel, to talk about it. I'm very open and honest about it and talk about it. I don't feel ashamed because it's part of, you know, a lot of men... I was very privileged and lucky that I could go into a dressing room and speak to a physio, speak to a doctor, speak to a surgeon on a daily basis and walk in naked, no... You know, that's what we did as footballers. That's what we do, believe it or not. And say, look, there's something wrong with this. Can you have a look at it? So I was quite lucky. And I'd lived in that lifestyle since I was a very young man. And the message should be, don't be ashamed, because there are doctors there. That's their job, to look and study and work out what's wrong with you. So, you know, I don't have a problem talking about it. It's quite easy. And like I said, I feel almost duty-bound to speak out about it.
Now, you had to have a dose of chemotherapy.
Yes, I did.
Which is never a whole barrel last for anybody.
No, it's not.
But you did manage to have children after this.
I did.
Which is unusual.
It is. So my previous wife, Lizzie, who you know very well.
She's been on Talking Pints.
She's been on Talking Pints. No, I don't doubt that for 1 second. we get on very well now. But so at the time I had one son, Joshua, who's now 28, and I was advised to store some sperm. This was back in 1997. Yeah. And this is before I had my second son, James, who's now 22. And naturally, I conceived with James. But unfortunately, what happened was 3 or 4 years later, I then had, my oncologist said, have an operation on the other side to check if I was going to have cancer on the other side. And unfortunately, it revealed less than 1,000 men a year have it, is that I was going to have testicular cancer in the other side. No. So that's very dangerous for a man. If you lose both balls, Nigel, you're in big trouble. There's a lot of complications. So I was left with two choices: to either I try and conceive another son or another child, or I remove the ball and have radiotherapy. So it was left with one option: just remove the ball. I've got 2 healthy boys. Yeah. Remove the ball, and the radiotherapy cleared it up. Luckily enough, now I've still got half a ball left, right? Which I'm very grateful for.
Too much information, but
I'm happy for. Yeah. But I stored that sperm back in 1997, and the good news story is that 17 years later, that sperm was frozen, and it was defrosted, and I now have an 8-year-old boy, Leonardo.
Which is pretty amazing.
Which is the unbelievable ability of science to freeze sperm for nearly 18 years.
That's incredible.
And 18 years later, out pops little Leonardo.
Well, you've been through the mill with injury and with health. You really have.
I've had my fair share of bad...
No, you have.
But I'm a lucky boy, though, Nigel. I'm a lucky boy.
This is it. You know, I've had all sorts of things go wrong with plane crashes and goodness knows what else. And I think to myself, was I unlucky or was I lucky? Well, we're both still sitting here, so we're both lucky.
Do you know what? I can look back and say, have I had my fair share of bad luck? And the answer to that question is yes. Have I had my fair share of good luck? And the answer to that question is yes. So I don't sit here and look back and wallow in what could have been. And I now look ahead and say what I've got now. And like you said, I retired from, at 29 from football. And I now work in the media. And
you've got this whole new Jason Cundy career. And of course, you do the Chelsea TV, but it's talk sport radio, isn't it? Yes. Which I have to say, you have got, you guys on that channel, you have got, for people who are really big football fans, you have got a very, very devout following. And you seem to, well, firstly, love being a broadcaster.
Do you know what, Nigel? We're lucky because, yes, I have the ability to voice an opinion. I love voicing my opinion. And football's been my life.
You love controversy, don't you?
We both know James Whale, right? We have a mutual friend who we both love. Yeah, but that's what sport and football in particular. It's tribal. It's based on opinions. It's based on your team doing well, better than the other side. But I've been lucky enough since I left school at the age of 16 to still be employed by football in some shape or form. Yeah. Whether it be as a player, an apprentice, a pro, coaching, in the media, doing other jobs. And, you know, this has been like a 35-year lucky. I owe football a huge amount. I'm incredibly lucky.
But just because you can play football doesn't mean you can be a broadcaster.
No, that's true.
What do you think the skills are to be a radio broadcaster?
I can talk, Nigel. I talk and I've got an opinion. You know, and there are many people, many footballers out there, who have had a far more illustrious career than I have had. Yeah, I was fortunate that TalkSport gave me the chance, and I've done the shows. They give me more shows, and now I present, and I've been there, you know, since 2004. Yeah. You know, so I have the ability to somehow. They keep employing me. There's the question. Yeah. You asked yourself,
no,
how do you still get work?
Well, I get kicked out occasionally.
Right,
but
yes. Yeah, and that,
it really works. And, of course, the time of day you broadcast gives you great latitude and freedom, doesn't it?
It does. I'll be leaving here. I'm on air tonight at 10 o'clock. Talk Sports Bar, if anyone wants to go and listen. We're lucky enough. There's going to be Carabao Cup quarterfinals tonight. So straight after here, we're going to go there. Yeah. And we react after that, the phone-in. So... yeah, it works. TalkSport is a brilliant, brilliant radio station. I'm incredibly lucky to have been working there so long.
No, it's brilliant. Yeah. And a final thought about football. You know, you think when you were playing, we're going back 30 years when you started playing professional football. Well, there we are. That's the truth.
Leave it out.
Is it ever more dominated by money today than it was then?
No, I think money's always dominated. Liverpool were the richest team in the country back in the 80s, and they showed their money back then. More so now because you can see it. You can now see the money. Yeah. Back then, the richest clubs tended to be the best clubs because they got the best players. Liverpool sold Kevin Keegan, they bought Kenny Dalglish. Yeah. But now more so because there's foreign investors. Name me a sport that doesn't have money.
Yeah, well, actually, with the Saudis getting involved...
Name me a sport, any sport.
I mean, there's more and more money coming into sport everywhere.
Name me any sport that doesn't have money.
No, there is. Jason Cundy, great guest. Thank you for coming on Talking Pints.
You're a star.
Great to have you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers, bud.
Cheers.